After 26 hours on duty at the hospital, I came home barely standing. My hands still smelled like antiseptic, my back ached, and all I wanted was to sit down and breathe. But the moment I stepped into my kitchen, my heart stopped. Right next to my old refrigerator stood a brand new one, sleek, silver, and definitely not mine. Then she appeared. My daughter-in-law. "That fridge is mine now," she said coldly. "From now on, buy your own food." At first I couldn't even speak. The woman who lived under my roof, without paying a single bill, had just claimed my kitchen as her own. That night, as they laughed in the living room, I made a decision. I wasn't going to argue. I wasn't going to shout. I was going to teach her a lesson she'd never forget. Before we continue, tell me where you're listening from. Don't forget to add your country's flag and the city you're in. I read every comment, and it truly warms my heart to see how far our stories travel. I'm 67 years old. I'm a registered nurse, and I thought the hardest part of my life was behind me. I was wrong the moment I opened my kitchen door. My kitchen, the one I'd cleaned 1,000 times, where I'd cooked every birthday cake for my son, where I'd cried after my husband died. I saw something that shouldn't have been there. A brand new refrigerator, gleaming silver, right next to mine. I stood in the doorway with my bag hanging from my shoulder, trying to understand. They'd bought a refrigerator without telling me. For what? Ours worked perfectly fine. Then I heard her voice. "That one's mine." Victoria, my daughter-in-law, emerged from the hallway with that expression I knew too well, a mixture of disdain and boredom, like I was an annoying fly in her space. "What did you say?" I asked. My voice sounded raspy. I'd gone hours without speaking to anyone outside the hospital. "The fridge is mine." She crossed her arms, leaning against the doorframe. "From now on, Eleanor, buy your own food." She didn't call me Mom. Didn't call me Mrs. Hayes. She called me by my first name, like we were roommates. Like this wasn't my house. I opened our old refrigerator, my refrigerator, and the air escaped from my chest. Everything, absolutely everything I'd bought 3 days before, had bright yellow sticky labels with her name written in black marker. Victoria. The cheese, the tomatoes, the yogurt, the leftover chicken, even the butter. "What is this?" I whispered. "What I told you. This is my food." "You buy your own," she shrugged. "It's not fair that I have to share what I buy with my money." Her money. Victoria didn't work. She hadn't worked a single day since marrying my son 2 years ago. Ryan was supposedly bringing in the money, though lately that money seemed to come from my own savings every time I lent them cash for gas, groceries, or some emergency. Ryan, I tried calling my son, but he was already there in his bedroom doorway, looking at me with eyes I no longer recognized. The same eyes that used to look at me with love when he was little, now there was only discomfort. "Mom, don't make a scene. Victoria's right. Everyone should buy their own stuff. It's more organized that way." I felt the floor shift beneath me, but I bought this. "I paid for this week's groceries. And that's why it has your name on it, doesn't it?" Victoria said, pointing to the labels. "Now we all know what belongs to whom." Much easier, I wanted to scream. I wanted to rip off every yellow label and throw them in her face. But I was so tired, so terribly tired. I just nodded. I went to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in years, I sat on the edge of my bed and allowed myself to feel the full weight of what had just happened. They lived in my house. The house I'd bought alone, with my nurse's salary, after my husband died and left me with nothing but debts and an 8-year-old son with chronic asthma. I'd worked double shifts, triple shifts. I'd cleaned hospital floors at 3 in the morning to pay the mortgage. I'd skipped meals so Ryan could have his medications. And now they were charging me to eat in my own kitchen. I took off my shoes. My feet were swollen, red. I had a new blister on my left heel. I couldn't even remember when it had formed. I heard laughter from the living room. Victoria and Ryan were watching television. I heard the microwave beep, smelled popcorn. Popcorn I couldn't eat because it had her name on it. I closed my eyes, and in that silence, in that darkness of my own room, something inside me began to change. I didn't know it yet, but that night, exhausted and humiliated, was the last night I'd let them treat me like a stranger in my own house. Because sometimes silence isn't surrender. Sometimes it's just the calm before the storm. I thought the labels were rock bottom, that they couldn't sink me any lower. How naive I was. 3 days later, I returned from another shift at the hospital. This time only 12 hours, but they'd been 12 hours of hell. A little girl with severe burns, an elderly man who died while I held his hand because he had no family. I came home wanting nothing but a cup of hot tea and silence. I walked into the bathroom and there they were, more labels. Yellow ones on the shampoo, the soap, the toothpaste, even the toilet paper. Victoria! I stood paralyzed, staring at my own toothbrush, the only object without a label, like it was the last thing I had left in the world. I left the bathroom, went to the kitchen. The pots had labels, the pans, the glasses, the plates. I opened the silverware drawer, even the forks. The damn forks? Looking for something? Victoria's voice came from right behind me. I jumped. I hadn't heard her approach. Victoria, this is too much. Too much? She tilted her head with that smile that never reached her eyes. Eleanor, I'm just protecting my things. You know how it is. Sometimes things get lost, get confused. This way, we all know what belongs to whom. But I bought these pots. I bought these plates 20 years ago. Oh, she shrugged. Then put your name on them too. I put mine on what's mine. And what exactly did you buy? The words came out harsher than I intended. Her eyes narrowed. Watch your tone, Eleanor. I'm your son's wife. I deserve respect, respect. That word echoed in my head as she turned around and went back to the living room where the TV was still blaring at full volume. That night, Victoria cooked dinner. The smell filled the entire house. Chicken pot pie, my favorite, the one I'd taught her to make when they first got married, back when we still pretended to be a happy family. I stayed in my room. My stomach growled. I hadn't eaten dinner. At the hospital, I'd only had coffee. I thought about going out, serving myself some. It was pot pie. She'd used my recipe, but I didn't do it. I couldn't. Not after the labels. Not after understanding that every bite I took from that kitchen would be a defeat. I heard their laughter. Ryan and Victoria talking about a TV series, about going on vacation to Florida. When we sell your mom's car, we could save up for the hotel, Victoria said. Silence. I don't know if I want to sell it, Ryan responded with a weak voice. Oh, honey, that car's old. She barely uses it. We need it more. I didn't hear what my son replied. I only heard that he didn't defend me. The next morning, I went downstairs early. I had the day off. I needed to talk to Ryan alone, without her. I found him in the kitchen drinking coffee, my coffee from my coffee maker, which now had a yellow label. Son, we need to talk. He looked up. I saw the dark circles under his eyes. He looked tired, older than his 32 years. Mom, if it's about the labels... It's not just about the labels, Ryan. It's about everything. I sat across from him. It's about how you both talk to me, how you treat me. This is my house. I know. Do you really know? Because it doesn't seem like it. I took a deep breath. You don't pay rent, you don't pay utilities, you don't pay property taxes, nothing. And now it turns out I can't even use my own soap. He rubbed his face. Mom, Victoria's my wife. I have to support her. If you don't like how she handles things, maybe you should think about finding your own place. The world stopped. My own place. I don't mean it badly, but we're a young couple. We need our space, privacy. We can't always be thinking about whether something bothers you or how we organize the house. My house. Ryan, my house. I know it's legally your house. Mom, you don't have to keep repeating it. His tone became irritated. But it's also where I live, where my wife lives. And frankly, sometimes I feel like Victoria's right. You're very old-fashioned. You don't understand how modern families work. I stood up. I didn't say anything else. What could I say? I went upstairs to my room, pulled out a box from the closet, a box I hadn't opened in years. Inside were photos. Ryan as a baby, Ryan with his nebulizer, those huge eyes looking at me with fear every time he couldn't breathe. Ryan at his high school graduation, at his first communion, in the hospital after the surgery that saved his life when he was 11. The surgery that cost $28,000, which I paid by selling my car, taking out loans, working at 2 hospitals at once. I ran my fingers over the photos, and for the first time in years, I didn't feel love. I felt something colder, more dangerous. I felt clarity, because my son had just told me to find another place to live in the house I'd bought, with money I'd earned caring for the sick while he slept peacefully, knowing his mother would never let him fall. I put the photos away. That night, Victoria cooked again, this time cornbread. The smell was a knife in my empty stomach. I didn't leave my room. I stayed there in the darkness, listening to their laughter, and I began to plan. Because if 39 years of being a nurse had taught me anything, it was this: pain doesn't heal by ignoring it. It heals by cutting out what's rotten, and in that house, something had rotted. But what I found 2 days later, hidden in my son's drawer, would change everything forever. Saturday, I decided to clean, not because the house needed it, but because I needed to do something with my hands, something that made me feel like I still had control over some corner of my own life. Victoria and Ryan had gone out to look at some things for the apartment, they said. I didn't ask what apartment. I didn't ask anything anymore. I started with the living room, then the bathroom. Then I stopped in front of Ryan's bedroom door. His room, the one that had been his since he was 8 years old. The one I'd painted. Blue because it was his favorite color. The one we'd filled with soccer posters and then rock band posters. I went in. The bed was unmade, clothes thrown on the floor. It smelled like Victoria's sickly sweet perfume. Nothing of my son's scent, the boy who used to smell like soap and dirt after playing outside. I started picking up, folding clothes, making the bed, dusting the furniture. Then I saw the nightstand drawer slightly open. I wasn't going to open it. I really wasn't. But something glinted inside. The afternoon sun hit it directly, and that flash caught my attention. I opened the drawer. Papers, lots of messy papers. Old receipts, printed photos of Victoria at the beach, at expensive restaurants, at bars, all recent, all while I was lending them money for gas. I kept searching without knowing exactly what I was looking for, and then I saw it. A thick manila envelope with my name written on top in Ryan's handwriting. Mom, important documents. I pulled it out with trembling hands. Inside were the house deeds, the ones I kept in my room in my filing cabinet. How had they gotten there? Under the deeds was another document, a promissory note, notarized, dated 2 years ago. Loan, $45,000. Debtor, Ryan Hayes. Creditor, Eleanor Hayes, widow. Purpose, initial investment for auto parts import business. I remembered everything. 2 years ago, Ryan came home excited. He had a plan. A friend had proposed a business, importing auto parts from Mexico. He was going to be a millionaire. He just needed $45,000 to start. I had that money. I'd saved it for 10 years. It was for my retirement, for when I couldn't work anymore. But it was my son, my only son. I'll pay you back in 6 months, Mom, with interest. You'll see. We signed it with a notary because he insisted. So you can see I'm serious, he said. The business never worked. The friend disappeared with part of the money. Ryan never mentioned the loan again, and I never asked because he was my son, and a mother doesn't charge for what she gives with love, right? I kept looking through the envelope. There were more papers, bank statements from 6 months ago, an account I didn't know about in Ryan's name with regular deposits of $15,000, $20,000. Where was this money coming from if he supposedly wasn't working? And at the bottom of everything, a folded sheet. I unfolded it. It was a printout of WhatsApp messages between Ryan and Victoria. Victoria, I already talked to the realtor. He says this house in this area is worth about $300,000. Ryan, that's a lot. Victoria, exactly. That's why, honey. Your mom's getting old. She won't live forever. And when she dies, who's she going to leave the house to? Ryan. Me. I'm an only child. Victoria. Exactly. But why wait? Convince her to sell it. We tell her it so she can move somewhere smaller, easier to maintain. She keeps 100,000. We keep 200. And with that, we build our real life away from here. Ryan. I don't know. She'll get angry. Victoria. She'll get over it. Besides, What's she going to do? Kick us out? You're her son. She won't leave you on the street. We give her a few months of special treatment, soften her up, and done. Ryan. Special treatment, haha. Victoria. You'll see. In 2 months, she'll be begging us to help her sell. The date on the message, 3 months ago. The labels appeared 2 weeks after that conversation. I dropped the papers, sat on my son's bed, and started trembling, not with fear, with rage, pure, boiling rage that rose from my stomach to my throat. They were pushing me out of my own house with a step-by-step plan, humiliation by humiliation. And my son knew. He had planned it. I took photos of everything with my cell phone, the messages, the promissory note, the bank statements, the deeds that had no business being in that drawer. I put everything back exactly as I found it. I closed the drawer, left the room, and went downstairs to the kitchen. I served myself a glass of water. My hands were shaking so much I almost dropped it. I looked around. The 2 refrigerators, the yellow labels on everything, the house I'd, bought with my pain, with my night shifts, with my destroyed knees from standing 12 hours a day. The house where I'd raised my son alone after his father died. The son who now wanted to sell it to go away with his wife, far from me. I wiped away tears I didn't know were falling, and in that moment, something inside me broke definitively. But not like they expected. I didn't break downward. I broke forward, because one thing is forgiveness. Another thing is being stupid. And I'd been stupid long enough. I took out my cell phone, searched Google. Eviction lawyer, Hartford, Connecticut. Several appeared. I chose one, Mr. Harold Bennett. Good reviews. Office near downtown. I dialed. A secretary answered. Bennett Law Firm. Good afternoon. My voice sounded firm, surprisingly firm. I need an urgent appointment. I want to evict someone from my property. Is it a tenant? No, it's my son. Brief silence. I understand. When can you come in? Tomorrow, if possible. Let me check. Yes, we have an opening at 11 in the morning. I'll be there. I hung up. I heard the front door. They were back. We're home! Victoria shouted with that sing-song voice she used when she was in a good mood. Eleanor, there's dinner. I took a deep breath. I came out of the kitchen with a smile. Do you want me to make something? Victoria looked at me, surprised. Ryan, too. Yeah, whatever's fine, my son said. Perfect, I nodded. I'll make some eggs. Ready in a moment. They looked at me strangely. Of course they did. I'd spent days barely talking to them, barely coming out of my room. But now I was smiling, because now I knew something they didn't know. Wars aren't won by whoever shouts loudest. They're won by whoever strikes when the enemy lets their guard down. That night I cooked dinner for them, set the table, even washed the dishes. Victoria and Ryan exchanged confused looks. Are you okay, Mom? He asked. Very well, son. I just thought you were right. I've been too tense. Sorry about that. Victoria smiled. A victory smile. I'm glad you understand, Eleanor. In the end, we all want what's best for the family, right? Of course, I replied, looking her straight in the eyes. What's best for the family? I went up to my room, closed the door, and for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply. Because tomorrow the war would begin, and they didn't even know they'd already lost. What the lawyer told me the next day was the beginning of the end for them. Monday at 11 sharp, I was sitting across from Mr. Harold Bennett. His office smelled like coffee and old paper. He had an enormous bookshelf filled with legal codes. On the wall hung his law degree next to a photo with the governor of Connecticut. He looked serious, but his eyes were kind. Tell me everything, Mrs. Eleanor. Take your time. And I told him. The labels, the messages, the loan they never paid back, the house in my name, everything. He took notes, occasionally nodding. When I finished, he took off his glasses and looked at me directly. Do you have proof of all this? I have photos of the messages. I have the notarized promissory note. I have the house deeds. Everything's in my name. They don't pay rent, utilities, nothing. I pay everything. Electricity, water, gas, property taxes, internet, everything. He nodded slowly. Ma'am, legally you have every right to evict them. It's your property. They have no lease agreement. They pay nothing. They're what we call occupants without title, he paused. But it's your son. Are you sure about this? I stayed quiet for a moment. Was I sure? I thought about the yellow labels, the messages planning to sell my house, Ryan telling me to find another place. Yes, I replied. I'm sure. Good. I need you to sign a notarized power of attorney. We're going to start the legal process. It'll take a few weeks, but we can speed things up if they don't cooperate. He opened a folder. We can also claim the loan with interest. We'd be talking about, let me calculate, about $62,000. The figure made me dizzy. So much interest accumulates, ma'am. And your son signed a legal promissory note. That's money you can claim. I signed the papers, paid his retainer fee, $15,000, money I had saved for emergencies. This was an emergency. I left the office with a strange feeling in my chest, like I just jumped out of a plane without being sure if the parachute would open. But there was no turning back. That same night, I arrived home later than normal. I'd stopped by the supermarket. I bought my things, mine, the ones I was going to label if necessary. When I opened the door, I heard voices in the living room, many voices. I went in and froze. Victoria's parents were there. Edgar and Marion Collins, sitting on my couch like they owned it. The mother-in-law arrived, Marion said with a smile that didn't reach her eyes. Good evening, I murmured. Eleanor. Come sit, Victoria said, pointing to a chair. A chair in my own living room while they occupied the couches. I sat. What else could I do? Look, Eleanor, Edgar began, a heavy man with a mustache and a booming voice. We gathered here because we need to talk about something important. As a family, Victoria told us about the situation, he continued. And we understand it's difficult for you, but you have to be reasonable. Reasonable about what? I asked. About the space, Marion intervened. This house is big, yes, but 3 adults living together is complicated. The kids need privacy. They're at the age to start their own family. And you, well, you're already in another stage of life. I felt my blood boiling. Another stage. Don't take it the wrong way, Edgar said. We're just saying that maybe it would be better for everyone if you considered options. What options? Victoria leaned forward. There are very nice senior living communities, Eleanor. Places where you'd be with people your age, with nurses, activities. You wouldn't be alone. An assisted living facility. It's not an assisted living facility, Ryan hurried to say. They're like communities, and you don't have to go far. There's one here in Hartford, near the highway. We went to see it. It's nice. They went to see it. Without me. Look, we even took photos. Victoria showed me her phone. Photos of a gray building with gardens. Small rooms, elderly people in wheelchairs. I saw myself there. In that place, waiting for death. And this house? I asked with a trembling voice. Well, Ryan scratched his neck. Victoria and I would stay here. Eventually, maybe we'd sell it, get something smaller, but that would be later. Of course, I said. Later. The important thing is that you'd be well cared for, Marion insisted. And the kids could start their real life. And who would pay for the residence? I asked. More silence. Well, you have your pension from the hospital, Victoria said. And if you sell your car, with that, you'd have enough for the first few months. After that, we'll see. We'll see. My car, the one I'd bought 5 years ago, the only luxury I'd allowed myself in decades. And if I sell the car, how would I get to work? I still work, in case you forgot. Oh, Eleanor, Marion sighed. At your age, you should be thinking about retiring, enjoying life. I'm 67, not 80, I replied. But you work too much, Victoria said with a syrupy voice. You get tired, you get sick. Wouldn't it be better to rest? I looked at my son. He wasn't looking at me. He was looking at the floor. Is that what you want, Ryan? For me to leave? He looked up. I saw something in his eyes. Guilt? Shame? Mom, we just want what's best for you. What's best for me? I stood up. Or what's best for you? Don't start with your dramas, Victoria said, rolling her eyes. It's not drama, Victoria. It's a question. What do you gain if I leave? You gain, she exploded. You gain peace. You gain care. You gain not having to clean this enormous house, this house that I bought. Oh, always the same thing. My house, Victoria stood up too. Yes, it's your house, but it's also where your son lives. What? Are you going to kick him out? Victoria, calm down, Edgar said. I won't calm down. I'm sick of this situation. She turned toward me. Since I arrived at this house, I've tried to get along with you, but you only know how to play the victim. Everything has to be your way. Well, no, Eleanor. You're not the only one living here anymore. And if you can't accept it, then yes. Maybe you should look for another place. The silence that followed was thick. I looked at Ryan. Do you think the same thing? He rubbed his face. Mom, I think Victoria's right. You can't keep controlling everything. This house, yes, you bought it, but it's also my home. And if I want to live here with my wife, that's my decision. Your decision. I felt something break in my chest. And what am I? A burden? Nobody said that, Marian intervened. You don't need to say it, I murmured. I turned around and went upstairs. Behind me, I heard Victoria. Oh, now she's angry. Tomorrow it'll pass. And soft laughter, like none of this mattered. I went into my room, locked the door, and this time, I did cry. I cried like I hadn't cried in years. I cried for the son I'd raised, for the sleepless nights when he had fever, for the 3 jobs I'd had to pay for his school, for every dollar I'd saved thinking about his future. I cried until there were no tears left, and when I finished, I washed my face, looked at myself in the mirror. I had red, swollen eyes, deep, dark circles. But I also had something new in my gaze. Decision. I took out my cell phone, found Mr. Bennett's number, sent him a message. Mr. Bennett, move forward with everything. I want them out of my house as soon as possible. The response came in seconds. Understood. Mrs. Eleanor, tomorrow we file the lawsuit. I put away the phone, lay down, and before sleeping I whispered in the darkness. Forgive me, Ryan. But I can't save you from yourself anymore. I'm so glad you're still here. Would you do me a small favor? Tap the like button and leave a red heart below. Knowing you're still here truly makes me happy. What happened 3 days later would make Victoria stop smiling forever. The next few days were strange. I acted normal, too normal. I greeted them in the mornings, made my breakfast without complaining about the labels, went to work, came back, locked myself in my room. Victoria was confused. I saw her looking at me several times with a furrowed brow, like she was trying to figure out what had changed. Ryan simply avoided me. He left early, came back late. When we coincided, he looked away. Good. Let them think I'd given up, that I'd accepted my fate as a bothersome old woman who would soon go meekly to a residence. But at night, when they slept, I worked. I observed, listened, investigated. I discovered their routines. Victoria got up at noon, showered in my master bathroom, which now had a lock on the outside, and sometimes went to the beauty salon, sometimes for coffee with friends. She'd return with shopping bags from stores like Target and Marshall's, brands I'd never been able to buy for myself. Ryan left early, supposedly to look for work, but came back smelling like beer and cigarettes, with red eyes. On a Tuesday night, while they watched a movie in the living room, I went into their room again. This time I knew exactly what I was looking for. I opened the dresser drawer, searched through the clothes. Nothing. I looked under the bed, shoe boxes. I opened them one by one. In the third one, I found what I needed. Updated bank statements through last month. Regular deposits of $18,000 every 2 weeks. Where was this coming from? I kept searching. There were receipts from bars, from expensive restaurants. One from the Marriott Hotel. Why would they need a hotel if they lived here? Then I saw a sealed envelope. I opened it. Inside was a brochure from a real estate company. Pre-sale condominiums, Riverside area, starting at $280,000. One of the condominiums was marked with red marker, a 3-bedroom, $320,000 on the last page, in Victoria's handwriting, with sale of old lady's house, $300K approx, minus $80K for her sour $220K left, plus bank loan $100K, $320K perfect, $80,000, out of my $300,000 house. The mathematics of my own betrayal written in red marker. I took photos of everything, the bank statements, the brochure, the hotel receipts. I put everything back exactly where it was. I left the room. They were still in the living room. I heard Victoria laughing at something in the movie. I went up to my room, downloaded the photos to my laptop, backed them up to the cloud. And then I did something I never thought I'd do. I wrote to Pat. Pat was my colleague at the hospital. We'd worked together for 15 years. She'd known Ryan since he was a child. She'd watched him grow up. Pat, I need a favor. Do you know someone who can investigate where some bank deposits come from? She responded within minutes. My cousin's an accountant, works for the IRS. What do you need? I need to know if my son is declaring these earnings and where they come from. I sent her photos of the bank statements. The next morning, Pat called me during my break at the hospital. Espy, your son's in trouble. What did you find? Those deposits come from a shell company, one that creates fake invoices. It's tax fraud. If the IRS discovers it, he'll get a huge fine. Maybe even jail time. My blood froze. Jail? This is serious, Espy. Your son is receiving dirty money. Someone's using him to launder money or evade taxes, and he's the one who'll pay if this explodes. How do you know he knows? Because he signs the receipts. He has an account where the money arrives. He can't say he didn't know. I hung up trembling. My son was involved in something illegal. That night I arrived home determined to talk to him alone. But when I entered, I heard agitated voices in the kitchen. I told you to be more discreet. Ryan's voice sounded desperate. Don't talk to me like that, Victoria replied. It's not my fault your mom is so nosy. What happened? Ryan asked. Nothing. Just that I saw her looking at my phone the other day. I'm sure of it. When I went to the bathroom, my cell phone was in a different position. Are you paranoid? I'm not paranoid. That old woman knows something. I can feel it. Silence. What could she know? Ryan asked, but his voice sounded nervous. I don't know, but we need to speed things up. Talk to her. Convince her to sell the house now or transfer it to your name. Something. The longer this takes, the more risk there is. I can't pressure her more. She's already angry. Well, find a way. Victoria's voice turned cold. Because if this falls apart, Ryan, I'm leaving. I didn't come to live with your mom forever. I came because you promised me a life, a condo, trips. And so far, all I have are labels in a kitchen that isn't even mine. I love you, Vero. You know that. Love doesn't pay the bills. Money does. I moved away from the door before they discovered me. I went up to my room with my heart racing. I had all the pieces now. The illegal money, the plans to sell the house, the pressure for me to leave. Everything was connected. I took out my laptop, opened a new document, and started writing a chronology with dates, with evidence, with photos. Every humiliation, every lie, every yellow label. I spent the entire night doing that, organizing my defense like it was a hospital case, systematizing the pain. At dawn, I printed everything, 3 copies. One for the lawyer, one for me, one for... Well, I'd see what the third was for. I showered, got dressed, made coffee. When I went down to the kitchen, Ryan was already there. He looked terrible, sunken eyes, unshaven. Good morning, I said calmly. He looked at me, surprised. Good morning, Mom. I made my breakfast. Toasted bread, black coffee, fruit. He kept staring at me. Are you okay? He finally asked. I looked him in the eyes. Very well, son. Why? I don't know. You seem different, I smiled. I slept well. That's all. Lie. I hadn't slept at all, but he didn't need to know that. I finished my breakfast, washed my plate, took my things. I'm going to the hospital. I'll be back tonight. Mom, he stopped me before I left. About the other day, about the residence thing. You don't have to decide now. I know, I replied. Don't worry, and I left. Before starting the car, I called Mr. Bennett. Mr. Bennett, it's Eleanor. I have more information. I think my son is involved in something illegal. I have proof. Come to the office today if you can. I'm on my way. I hung up, started the car, and as I drove through Hartford's streets with the morning sun hitting my face, I felt something I hadn't felt in months, power, because I was no longer the foolish old woman who endured everything for love. Now I was the lioness protecting what was hers, and nobody was going to take this lioness out of her den. But what was coming wouldn't just get them out of my house, it would make them kneel before me. Thursday, I returned from a 14-hour shift. It had been brutal. 2 cardiac arrests, a patient who didn't survive, a family crying in my arms, asking me why God had taken her. I had no answers. I never did. I arrived home dragging my feet. Everything hurt, my back, my knees, even my soul. All I wanted was a hot bath and sleep. I opened the door. The smell hit me first. Food. Roast chicken, potatoes, that smell that makes you salivate automatically. I went into the kitchen and froze. My refrigerator was open, empty, completely empty. On the floor, next to the trash can, were my things. The yogurt I'd bought 2 days ago, the ham, the cheese, the tomatoes, the bread, everything thrown in a black garbage bag. "What?" I whispered. "Oh, you're back." Victoria entered the kitchen, wiping her hands with a napkin. She was wearing a new blouse, expensive. I could see it in the tag still hanging from the neck. "I had to throw out your food." "What did you do?" "What?" she shrugged. "It was spoiled." It smelled horrible. It was contaminating my fridge. You know how it is. When things mix together, everything ends up smelling bad. That food was fine. I bought it 2 days ago. Well, I smelled it and it was rotten. She looked at me with those cold eyes. "Besides, Eleanor, I already told you if you want to store food, buy your own fridge." Like I did, I looked at the garbage bag. There was my week's food. $200 thrown in the trash. Something inside me broke. It wasn't dramatic, it wasn't explosive. It was silent, like when a rope that's been tense too long finally snaps. It simply broke. "Where's Ryan?" I asked with a hollow voice. "In the living room." "Why?" I didn't answer. I walked to the living room. My son was sprawled on the couch looking at his phone, beer in hand. The third empty bottle on the coffee table. Ryan. He looked up. "What happened, Mom?" "Your wife threw my food in the trash." "Oh yeah," she told me. "It was spoiled." "It wasn't spoiled." "Mom." He sighed like I was a difficult child. "If Victoria says it was bad, it was bad. She knows about these things. She knows." I felt my voice breaking. "Ryan, I've been buying food for 40 years. I think I know when something's rotten." "Don't start now." He got up, swaying slightly. He was drunk. "I'm tired of your dramas." "My dramas." The words came out like knives. "My dramas, Ryan. I threw away food worth $200. $200 I earned working while you're here drinking beer that I paid for." "You didn't pay for this beer. Victoria bought it." "With what money, Ryan?" "With what money does Victoria buy things if she doesn't work? That's not your problem." "Of course it's my problem. You live in my house, eat my food, use my utilities. Everything I ask is legitimate." "Enough," he shouted. For the first time in years, my son shouted at me. "I'm sick of it." "Sick of everything having to be about you. Your house, your food, your money. We get it. You did everything. You're the great martyr, the saint mother who sacrificed everything." The words hit me like fists. "Ryan." "No. I'm tired, Mom. Tired of feeling guilty for existing. Tired of feeling like I owe you every breath because you worked hard. I didn't ask to be born. I didn't ask for Dad to die. Those were your decisions, not mine." The silence that followed was unbearable. Victoria appeared in the doorway. She had a small, victorious smile. I looked at my son, that 32-year-old man with red eyes from alcohol and rage, and I didn't recognize him. The boy who used to hug my legs when he had nightmares. The teenager who brought me flowers on Mother's Day with his first paycheck. The young man who cried on my shoulder when his first girlfriend left him. That boy was gone. In his place was a stranger who hated me. "Okay," I said in a voice so low I barely heard myself. "Okay." I turned around, went upstairs, entered my room, locked the door, and then, for the first time in my life, I felt like I couldn't breathe. Not physically. My lungs worked fine, but something deeper, something in the center of my chest, had closed up. I sat on the bed, took out my phone. With trembling hands, I called my sister Lucille. She lived in Boston. We didn't see each other much, but we'd always been there for each other. "Ellie, what happened?" She answered, worried. "It was 10 at night, and I never called that late, and then I broke down." I told her everything between sobs, between hiccups, the labels, the messages, the loan, the food in the trash. Ryan's words. She didn't interrupt, just listened. When I finished, there was silence. "Eleanor," she finally said, her voice serious. "You have to get him out of your house. He's my son. He's an ungrateful brat. And that woman is a snake. They're going to leave you with nothing, and when they do, They're going to leave and you'll be alone, without a house, without money, without anything. But there are no buts, sister. I know you love him, but love can't be so blind. Sometimes loving means letting them fall. It's the only thing that wakes them up. I cried harder. I can't do that to him. Then get ready to lose everything. Because that's what's going to happen. She hung up. I stayed there alone, in the darkness, with the phone in my hand. And for the first time I thought something terrible. I thought, what if I leave? What if I give them the house and go? It would be easier, less painful. I could rent a small room, work until I retired, die peacefully, knowing I didn't break my family. But then I remembered something. I remembered the day I bought this house. Ryan was 12 years old. We'd been renting a horrible apartment in a dangerous neighborhood for 2 years. But I'd saved penny by penny for 5 years. The day I signed the deed, I came home crying with happiness. Son, I told him, we have a house. A real house. Nobody can take it away from us. He hugged me. He smelled like kids' soap and dreams. Nobody, Mom. Not even if we don't pay rent. Nobody. Because it's ours. Yours and mine. I opened my eyes. Yours and mine. Not Victoria's, not her parents', not anyone else's. Mine. I got up, wiped my tears, opened my nightstand drawer, took out the folder where I had all the evidence, the photos, the documents, and took out something else, the original house deeds, the ones I'd retrieved from Ryan's room and kept in my room. I opened them. There was my name, Eleanor Hayes, widow, sole owner. I ran my fingers over the letters. 40 years of work, 40 years of pain, 40 years of sacrifice. Everything was in this paper, and nobody was going to take it away from me. I took my phone, found the chat with Mr. Bennett, wrote, Mr. Bennett, I need to see you tomorrow morning. Urgent. We're going to speed everything up. What happened, Mrs. Eleanor? I'm not going to wait anymore. I want them out of my house next week. Understood. Tomorrow, first thing, I'll prepare the documents. I put away the phone, lay down, and this time I didn't cry because the tears were gone. In their place was something harder, colder, determination. My son thought I was weak, that I was going to give up. But he forgot something. He forgot that women who raise children alone, who work 3 jobs, who endure pain and keep standing, we don't break. We transform, and when they touch what we love most, we become relentless. Ryan was about to learn something I'd taught him when he was a child. Every action has consequences, and his were just about to arrive. What I did Saturday morning made Victoria lose that smile forever. Friday at 8 in the morning, I was sitting across from Mr. Bennett. This time, I wasn't trembling, wasn't crying. I was firm as a rock. Mrs. Eleanor, I prepared everything. He put several documents on the desk. Here's the eviction notice. Here's the lawsuit for the unpaid loan, $62,000 with interest. And here, he pulled out another paper, the lawsuit for moral damages and improper use of property. We're calculating an additional $15,000. Moral damages? I asked. You've suffered psychological abuse in your own home, systematic humiliation. That has legal value. He looked at me seriously. If we take this to trial, we could win even more. But I warn you, it'll be long, painful, and public. How long? 6 months, maybe a year. I shook my head. I don't have a year. I need them out now. Then we have another option. He leaned back in his chair. We confront them. We show them all the evidence. We make it clear that either they leave peacefully or we destroy them legally. With the evidence you have, especially about the illegal money, your son could go to prison. The word prison hit my chest. I don't want him to go to prison. I know. But he doesn't have to know that. The lawyer leaned forward. Fear can be more effective than any trial. If he believes he could go to prison, he'll cooperate. And if not, then we proceed with everything. No mercy, he paused. Ma'am, I know he's your son, but if you don't set limits now, they're going to destroy you. They're going to sell your house, leave you on the street, and they won't look back. I closed my eyes, took a deep breath. Let's do it. But I want to be present. I want to see their faces when they find out. Are you sure? Completely. I signed the papers. All of them. The eviction notice, the lawsuit for the loan, everything. The lawyer put them in a manila envelope. When do you want us to serve them? Tomorrow, Saturday morning. When they're home, relaxed, confident. He nodded slowly. Tomorrow at 10 I'll go personally with a process server. Will you be there? I'll be there. That night I arrived home earlier than normal. Victoria was in the living room painting her nails. Ryan was sleeping on the couch with his mouth open. Hello, I said. Victoria barely looked at me. Hello. I went up to my room, but not to hide. This time to plan. I took out an old suitcase from the closet. I started packing my most important things. Documents, photos, clothes, my hospital uniforms, everything I didn't want them to touch. Because tomorrow, after the notification, I didn't know what might happen. I put the suitcase under the bed. Then I did something I never did. I opened my jewelry box, the one my mother gave me before dying. Inside were few things: a gold ring, my wedding earrings, a thin chain, and a photo. An old faded photo of my husband Ricardo smiling with baby Ryan in his arms. I took it out, looked at it for a long time. Forgive me, love, I whispered. I know you wanted me to take care of our son, but I think taking care of him now means letting him go, letting him fall so he can learn. I put away the photo, closed the jewelry box, and that night, for the first time in weeks, I slept deeply, without nightmares, without tears, because there was nothing left to decide. The decision was made. Saturday, I got up at 7 in the morning. I showered, dressed in my best clothes, black pants, white blouse, closed shoes. I fixed my hair, put on a little lipstick. I looked at myself in the mirror and saw a different woman. Not the exhausted nurse, not the humiliated mother. I was Eleanor Hayes, owner of this house, woman who raised a son alone, woman who saved lives, woman who wasn't going to let herself be trampled anymore. I went down to the kitchen, made coffee, scrambled eggs, warmed bread. Ryan came down with swollen eyes. What are you doing? He asked, surprised. Breakfast. Do you want some? Yeah, I served him. He ate in silence, glancing at me sideways. Victoria came down half an hour later. She was wearing a pink silk robe, face washed. Without makeup, she looked younger, almost vulnerable. Good morning, I said. Good morning, she replied suspiciously. What are we celebrating? Nothing. I just thought I'd make a nice breakfast. I served her too. Sit down. She sat but didn't touch the food. What do you want, Eleanor? Want? Nothing. Can I make you breakfast? You can, but it's weird. You've spent weeks barely talking to us and now this. I smiled. Maybe I'm just tired of fighting. Ryan and Victoria exchanged glances. At 9:30, my phone rang. It was Mr. Bennett. Ma'am, we're arriving. Perfect. I'll open the door. I hung up. Who was that? Ryan asked. Nobody important. I got up. I'm going to open up. I'm expecting a delivery. I went to the door, opened it. There were Mr. Bennett in his gray suit and a younger man with a briefcase. The process server. Good morning, Mrs. Eleanor. Good morning. Come in. They entered. Ryan came out of the kitchen. Who are they? He asked. Mr. Bennett spoke in a clear, professional voice. Good morning. I'm Harold Bennett, litigation attorney. I'm here to serve Ryan Hayes and Victoria Collins Hayes with a legal lawsuit filed by Mrs. Eleanor Hayes, widow. The silence that followed was absolute. Victoria appeared in the kitchen doorway. Lawsuit? What are you talking about? The process server took the documents from his briefcase. Ryan Hayes, you are hereby served with 1. Immediate eviction from the property located at 847 Maple Street, Hartford, Connecticut. 2. Lawsuit for breach of payment of loan documented before a notary public. Total amount owed $62,000. 3. Lawsuit for moral damages and improper use of private property. Estimated amount $15,000. Ryan went pale. Mom, what is this? This, I said with a firm voice, is the end. Victoria snatched the papers from the process server's hands. This is crazy. You can't sue us. We're your family. Family. I repeated the word like it was poison. Family that put labels on my own food. Family that planned to sell my house. Family that threw $200 worth of my food in the trash. Mom, wait. Ryan took a step toward me. We can talk. You don't have to do this. There's nothing left to talk about, Ryan. You had months to talk. You had 1,000 opportunities to treat me like your mother, and you chose to treat me like garbage. That's not true. I love you. Do you love me? The laugh that came from me sounded bitter. You loved me so much that you told your wife to convince me to sell my house. You loved me so much that you told me to find another place to live. You loved me so much that you shouted that you didn't ask to be born. He stayed quiet. Mr. Bennet continued. You have 72 hours to vacate the property. If you don't do so voluntarily, we'll proceed with judicial eviction. Additionally, Mr. Ryan has 30 days to respond to the loan lawsuit. Otherwise, we'll proceed with asset seizure. We have nowhere to go, Victoria shouted. That's not my client's problem, the lawyer responded coldly. You have family, you have options, but you no longer have the right to be here. You're a disgrace, Victoria spat at me. A bitter old woman who can't stand to see her son happy. I looked her straight in the eyes. I'm a woman who no longer allows herself to be stepped on in her own house. I turned around, went upstairs. Behind me I heard screams, tears. Please. I closed my room door, sat on the bed, and breathed. For the first time in months, I breathed for real. Because the weight I'd carried for so long had finally lifted. I was no longer their victim. I was their judge. But what I found on my door 3 hours after the lawyer left would make me doubt everything. 3 hours after Mr. Bennet left, everything was silent. A thick, dangerous silence. I stayed in my room, listening, waiting. I heard hurried footsteps, doors slamming, Victoria crying, Ryan talking on the phone with a desperate voice. Then nothing. I looked out the window. The car was still in the driveway. They hadn't left. I went downstairs carefully. The living room was empty, the kitchen too. Then I saw something on the refrigerator door, a note written in Ryan's handwriting. Mom, we went to Victoria's parents. We'll be back tomorrow to talk. Please reconsider. We're family. Don't do this. I tore off the note, crumpled it up, threw it in the trash. Family. How easy it was to use that word when it suited you. The rest of Saturday I spent cleaning, taking off all the yellow labels, one by one, with rage, with satisfaction. Every label I ripped off was a piece of dignity I was getting back. I cleaned out Victoria's refrigerator. I emptied it completely. I threw all her food in the trash. I felt a dark pleasure doing it. Now you know how it feels, I thought. That night I slept with the door locked. Sunday dawned cloudy, gray. I got up early, made coffee, sat in the kitchen to wait. I knew they'd come back, and I was right. At 10 in the morning, I heard the car, voices, the door opening. They entered, Ryan, Victoria, and her parents, all 4 of them. Edgar came in front, his face red with anger. Where is she? He shouted. Here I am, I said, coming out of the kitchen. He saw me and advanced toward me with his finger raised. Who do you think you are to sue my daughter? I'm the owner of this house, and your daughter is an abuser. My daughter is not an abuser. You're the one who doesn't know how to live with others. Mr. Collins, I said with a calm I didn't know I had. Your daughter put labels on my own food, in my own house. She threw my food in the trash, treated me like trash. And you told me to go to an assisted living facility so they could keep my house. We were looking for options for your own good. For my own good, I repeated. Selling my house is for my own good. Putting me in a facility and keeping the scraps is for my own good. That house is worth $300,000, Victoria shouted. We weren't going to leave you with nothing. Ah, I nodded. You were going to leave me $80,000, like your note says, the one I found where you calculated how much you'd have left after selling my house. She went quiet. What note? Ryan asked. The note your wife wrote on a condo brochure where she planned to steal $220,000 from my own house. It's not stealing, Victoria murmured. We were going to give you your share. My share. The rage rose in my throat. My share of my house. Are you listening to yourself? Edgar stepped between us. Look, Mrs. Eleanor, I know you're upset, but we can fix this without lawyers, without drama, like civilized people. I don't want to fix anything anymore. Don't be stubborn, he shouted. If this goes to trial, everyone loses, not me. I have all the evidence, messages, documents, witnesses. I looked at them one by one. And I have something else, something I discovered this week. Ryan went pale. Mom, no. Your son, I said, looking at Edgar, is receiving illegal money, deposits from a shell company, tax fraud. If the IRS finds out, he's going to prison. The silence was absolute. That's a lie, Victoria said, but her voice was shaking. It's not a lie. I have the bank statements. An accountant already reviewed them, and if this goes to trial, that information will come to light. Ryan collapsed into the armchair. Mom, I didn't know. A friend offered me that job. I just signed invoices. I didn't know it was illegal, but you signed and received the money and spent it. My voice was ice. In hotels, expensive restaurants, clothes for your wife, while you told me you didn't have money for the electric bill? Enough, Victoria screamed. Enough with playing the victim. You're the one destroying this family. I didn't destroy anything. You did it. Label by label, humiliation by humiliation. They were just labels. It's not that big a deal. They weren't just labels, I shouted for the first time, and my voice echoed through the entire house. They were a message that I no longer mattered, that in my own house I was a stranger, that everything I built, everything I worked for, everything I sacrificed was worth nothing. The silence that followed was deafening. You have until Tuesday to get out of my house, I said with a firm voice. If you don't, the police come, the sheriff comes, and they'll throw you out by force with all your things on the street for the neighbors to see. Mom, please. Ryan knelt in front of me, tears rolling down his cheeks. Please don't do this. I'm your son, your only son. Something broke in my chest, seeing him like that. But I didn't back down. Precisely because you're my son. Ryan, because I love you, I have to do this. I crouched to his level. I spent your entire life saving you from your illnesses, your debts, your mistakes. And all I accomplished was making you believe there would always be someone to pick up your messes. That's not true. Yes, it is, and you know it. I wiped away one of his tears. You're 32 years old, you don't work, you live off others, your wife doesn't work, and you plan to sell my house to continue living without responsibilities. What kind of life is that? The one we could have had. The one I allowed you to have, but it's over. I stood up. It's time for you to grow up, son. And if that means losing you, I accept it. What happened Monday night would change everything and make me see my son with different eyes. Monday was the longest day of my life. I went to the hospital early, 12-hour shift. I needed to be away, needed air. My colleagues noticed something was wrong. Pat took me to the cafeteria during break. Ellie, you look awful. What happened? I did what you told me. I sued them, kicked them out of my house. She hugged me. You did the right thing. Then why do I feel so bad? Because he's your son, and even though he hurt you, he's still your son. She squeezed my hands. But remember, sometimes letting someone fall is the only way they learn to get up alone. I returned home at 8 at night. Ryan's car wasn't there. I opened the door with my heart racing. The house was silent, but something was different. I went into the living room. Boxes everywhere, folded clothes, objects wrapped in newspaper. They were packing. I went upstairs. Ryan and Victoria's bedroom door was open. Victoria was there, putting clothes in a suitcase. She saw me and stopped. Happy? She said with a dry voice. We're leaving. That's what you wanted. I wanted respect. It wasn't much to ask. Respect. She let out a bitter laugh. You know what? You're right. We're leaving. And you know what else? I'm taking your son very far from you. Ryan makes his own decisions. Don't be so sure, she crossed her arms, because I do value him. I do believe in him. Not like you, who only reminds him of everything you did for him, like it's an eternal debt. Her words hit me. I never made him feel that. Of course you did. Every time you talk, I worked, I paid, I sacrificed. Do you know what that does to a person? It makes them feel like they'll never be enough, like they'll never be able to pay you back for what you did. I stayed quiet. That's why he drinks. Why he can't get a job, because he's so afraid of disappointing the great Eleanor Hayes, the woman who did everything alone, that he'd rather not try. She paused. And deep down you know it, but it's easier to blame me, make me the villain, when the truth is you kept him like that, dependent, useless, because if he grew up, he wouldn't need you anymore. And you need to be needed. I felt the floor move. Get out of my house, I whispered. Gladly. She left the room, pushing past me. I stayed there, standing in the hallway, breathing heavily. Was she right? Was all this my fault? I went downstairs like a zombie. I sat at the kitchen table and then I heard the front door open. It was Ryan. He came in alone, without Victoria. His eyes were red. "Mom, I need to talk to you. There's nothing to— Please." His voice broke. "Just listen to me. 5 minutes." I nodded without looking at him. He sat across from me. "You're right about everything," he said. "About everything. I'm useless, ungrateful, a terrible son." "I know." I didn't respond. "Victoria left me an hour ago. She told me that if I didn't convince you to drop the lawsuit, she was leaving. I told her I couldn't ask you for that and she left." He wiped his eyes. "Her parents came for her. She told me that when I grew up and became a real man, to call her, but that as long as I lived off my mom, she didn't want to know anything about me." I felt bitter satisfaction. "I'm sorry," he continued. "Sorry for being so weak, so cowardly. Sorry for shouting that I didn't ask to be born. It was the most horrible thing I've ever said." Tears started falling down my cheeks. "Mom, I did ask to be born, because having you as a mother was the best thing that could have happened to me. And I ruined everything." "Ryan, let me finish." He took a deep breath. "That money from the invoices, I did know it was wrong, not at first, but later I did. And I kept doing it because it was easy, because it was quick money, and because Victoria wanted things. And I wanted her to see me as someone successful. Son, I'm going to return the money. I don't know how, but I will. And I'm going to leave your house, not because you're forcing me, but because it's right, because I have to learn to support myself." He looked into my eyes. "But can you let me stay 1 week? Just one, to look for work, to find a room, and then I'll go." I wanted to say no, that it was too late, that the damage was done. But he was my son, and despite everything, he was still my son. 1 week, I said. "But under my rules, whatever they are. No alcohol. You look for work every day. You pay me something for the room, even if it's $1,000. And you go to therapy." "Therapy?" "Yes, because Victoria was right about something. You and I have things to fix, and we can't do it alone." He stayed quiet for a moment. "Okay, I'll do it. And about the loan?" I took out my phone, called Mr. Bennett. "Mr. Bennett, it's Eleanor. I want you to freeze the loan lawsuit. Don't withdraw it, just pause it to see what happens." "Are you sure?" "Yes, understood." "And the eviction?" I looked at Ryan. "Also on pause. 1 week?" "As you wish," I hung up. Ryan looked at me with tear-filled eyes. "Thank you, Mom. Prove it to me." The next 3 days were strange. Ryan kept his word. He got up early, printed resumes, went out to look for work. I watched him from afar, and slowly, very slowly, we started talking. Not about the labels, not about Victoria, not about the past. We just conversed like we hadn't in years. Thursday, he came home with good news. "Mom, I got a job at a hardware store. It's not much, but it's a start." I felt pride, genuine pride. "That's great, son." That night we cooked together. I made rice, he prepared the chicken like when he was a teenager and helped me in the kitchen, and while we ate, he told me something that broke my heart. "Mom, I found a room downtown. It's small, but I can afford it with my salary. When are you moving?" "Monday, that is if you want me to leave." I looked at him. "Do you want to go?" "I think so. I think I need to, because if I stay, I'll fall into the same pattern. I need to learn to live alone, to pay for my things, to be responsible." I nodded, though something in me was breaking. "Okay. Can I come visit you on Sundays?" "Always. This will always be your house. But now, on different terms." He smiled. A sad smile, but real. "Thank you, Mom." And in that moment, I knew I'd done the right thing, that letting him fall had been the only way for him to learn to fly. But what happened Sunday? The day before he left was the real closure we both needed. Sunday dawned with bright sunshine. Ryan got up early. I heard him in the kitchen making coffee. I went down. He was there looking out the window, something in his hand. "An envelope. Good morning," I said. He turned around. "Good morning, Mom. I need to give you this." He handed me the envelope. I opened it. Inside was money. Bills of hundreds and fifties. I counted quickly. $3,000. What is this?" "What I owe you for this week." 1,000 for rent and 2,000 as the first payment of my debt. Ryan, you don't have to. Yes, I do. His voice was firm. I owe you $62,000, right? With interest. Well, I'm going to pay you back. I don't know how long it'll take me, maybe years, but I'm going to do it. I felt a knot in my throat. And I also want to give you this. He pulled out a folded paper from his pocket. It's a payment plan. I made it with an accountant I met. I can pay you $3,000 monthly. In 18 years, I'll be paid up. 18 years. I looked at the paper. Everything was calculated, date by date, payment by payment. Ryan, you're 32. In 18 years, you'll be 50. I know, but it's my responsibility and I'm going to fulfill it. He paused. Because that's how you taught me, that debts get paid, that promises are kept. And I broke many promises, Mom, but I'm not going to break this one. Tears ran down my cheeks. I hugged him, and he hugged me back like when he was a child, like when he was afraid, like when he needed me. Only now it was different. Now he didn't need me to save him. He hugged me because he loved me, and that changed everything. That afternoon, I helped him pack his last things. While we folded clothes, he told me, you know, Victoria texted me yesterday. I looked up. What did she want? She asked if you'd dropped the lawsuit. I told her no, that you were right, that I'd been an idiot. He smiled bitterly. She told me I was a loser, that I'd never amount to anything, and that I should rot in my mom's house forever. I'm sorry. Son, don't be sorry, he looked at me, because she was right about something. I was a loser, but I don't want to be anymore. And if to stop being one I have to lose her, then so be it. He closed the suitcase. More than her, I miss who I thought I was when I was with her. What do you mean? I thought I was important, successful, but it was all a lie. It was all money that wasn't mine, a house that wasn't mine, a life that wasn't mine. He looked at me. And now I have a 3x3 room, a job paying $12,000 every 2 weeks, and a debt of $62,000. He let out a laugh. But it's mine. It's my life for the first time in years. I felt deep, real pride. Your dad would be proud. He stayed quiet. His eyes filled with tears. Do you think so? I know so, because your dad also made mistakes, many, but he always got up, always tried. And that's what you're doing. At 5 p.m, the moving truck arrived. Well, it wasn't really a truck. It was a friend's pickup that Ryan had hired for $200. We loaded his things together. They weren't many. A disassembled bed, boxes of clothes, some furniture. When we finished loading everything, Ryan stood in front of the house, looking at it like he was seeing it for the first time or the last. I grew up here, he said softly. Here I took my first steps. Here I had nightmares and you calmed me. Here I had breakfast before going to school every day for 20 years. He turned toward me. This house is my story, and I'm going to miss it. It'll always be here, and so will I. I know, but it won't be the same, and that's okay, because it's what I need. He got in the truck. See you Sunday? Yes, to eat together. I'll make your favorite, chicken pot pie, whatever you want, he smiled, closed the truck door, and left. I stood there on the sidewalk watching him drive away, and when the truck turned the corner and disappeared, something inside me let go. I cried, but not from sadness, from relief. Because finally, I had let my son go. Not because I didn't love him, but because loving him meant letting him grow, even if it hurt, even if it left me alone. 6 months later, I'm sitting in my living room. My house is quiet, but it's no longer a heavy silence. It's a peaceful silence. Ryan comes every Sunday, as he promised. Sometimes he brings food, sometimes we cook together. He tells me about his work, his co-workers, how he's saving money. He's already paid me $20,000 of his debt in small but consistent payments. Last week, he told me something that filled my heart. Mom, I met someone. Her name is Laura. She works at the bakery on the corner from my room. She's a good person. What does Laura do? She works, studies at night, business administration. She wants to start her own business someday. He smiled. I like that she has her own dreams, that she doesn't need me to solve her life. I'd like to meet her. I'll bring her soon, but slowly. Now I go slowly with everything, and that gave me more joy than anything else. Today is Sunday. I made chicken pot pie, Ryan's favorite. I also invited Pat and my sister Lucille, who came from Boston. Ryan arrived with Laura, a pretty girl with warm eyes and a shy smile. We ate together, laughed, talked, and at that table, surrounded by my son, who had finally found his way, I felt something I hadn't felt in years: peace. Not because everything was perfect, but because finally I had done the right thing. I loved my son enough to not save him anymore. And in that act of tough love, love that hurts but heals, I truly saved him. Thank you for listening all the way to the end. If you enjoyed this story, the ones on your screen are just for you. If this story brought a word, a thought, or a feeling to your mind, share it in the comments. Let's see whose words will touch the most hearts. Thank you for listening.